a future undetermined time. At this particular point, we look past the headlines to ask, is long-term trust in the ZiG achievable? How are formal and informal businesses adapting on the ground? And we'll break down the risks, the realities, as well as the path ahead. Our discussion tonight, the monocurrency countdown. Can the ZiG hold the line? Of course, to follow the conversation via our social media handles at Zim Papers TV Network as well as at ZTN Prime. Your views and your thoughts are important to us. Now, for this very conversation, I'm joined in studio by Gladys Mutsopotsi Shumbambiri, a business and economic analyst, Moses Chihuri, industrial economist, Mishek Ogaro, president, Zimbabwe Economic Society, and senior Zimbabwe National Chamber of Commerce economist, as well as Agnes Magunje, chairperson, Informal Traders Empowerment Association. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the chase.
Thank you, Eva.
Now, we had extended an invitation to Mr. Persistence Gwanyanya, a member of the Monetary Policy Committee. Unfortunately, he could not join us for this very conversation. Now, please note that the views expressed on this program do not reflect those of the Chase or those of Zim Papers 1980 Limited, but are an indication of the views and perspectives of the guests here presented on the Chase. With that, let's get started. Now, according to the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe, 6 out of the 8 conditions for a full monetary transition have been met. But on the streets, Mr. Ogaro, the US dollar still reigns supreme. Let's start with reality versus policy. What is your assessment there?
Yes, before I maybe come straight to your question, let me paint a picture as a background to which we can then hold the discussions. As we sit here, Zimbabwe has earned $10.7 billion up to June in foreign currency earnings. That is a record since independence. Of that 10.7 billion, about 8 billion is merchandise export, which is goods sold outside the country. And of that 8 billion, 2.5 billion is mineral exports, of which about 40 to 45% is gold, whose price has been stable and up. As a result of this, the country is experiencing a positive or a surplus current account balance. The 10 billion is coming from the 4 main lines of foreign currency, which is merchandise exports, foreign direct investments, diaspora inflows and loans. And this has not happened ever. Because of that, the reserves of the country are now up to 1.6 billion. You remember we started at 285 million when ZiG was launched. Now it's 1.6 billion, covering the ZiG deposits in the banks about 6 times. So if you work it technically as an economist, the correct exchange rate should actually be about 16, 17. However, there's a difference. The exchange rate, the market exchange rate is 26, 27. That is the premium of confidence that the market is showing. I'm happy to say that I've noted that some big players in the market are now swiping at 29. They were 32, 31, 30, 29 as I speak. And the market rate is playing around 26, 27 since September 2024. This has not happened before. And I think by that picture, we can then go into the discussions, into your questions. What's the future of ZiG? I think the ZiG has already demonstrated stability. And you mentioned 60% of the conditions precedent being met, which is correct. I can just highlight the ones that have not yet been met as the ones that are very important. The first one being, the most important one being import cover. We need import cover between 3 to 6 months, but we are now at about 1.7 months. At this rate, you can expect us to hit 2 months cover by the end of the year, if we keep it that rate. Of course, we'll still be behind. If I were to score the central bank, so far, in terms of monetary policy and the achievement. I would give them about 60 to 70% of the target. So we are on our way towards monocurrency. But I must hasten to indicate the authorities are still saying we don't know when monocurrency will be achieved. They will let the market determine the exchange rate, the monocurrency. They can't give a date. And to your question as to if we are ready for monocurrency, at the moment, because you are saying that US dollar transactions are 90% now, if you look at it in short-term basis, they seem to have increased, because I think we started at about 70, 80, and now 90. But the way to look at it is in terms of long-term, on a more long-term basis. The oscillations that are short-term are normal. The important thing is to look at the trend of ZiG utilization or transactions in the market, which is in itself increasing. So I would say, yes, we are headed towards the right direction. We started in 2018 with a dual, to quote the minister, double or twin devils, which was the current account deficit and the budget deficit. Both have been cured. We are actually running a current account surplus. The government has not borrowed a single cent from the Reserve Bank for the last 24 months. So that is a clear sign of coordination between these two arms and in support of a strong performance of ZiG. So I would say, yes, we are headed in the right direction.
Right. I come to you as an industrial economist. Your perspective in terms of the application or the usage of the ZiG in domestic transactions, policy versus reality.
Thanks, Eben. I think as an industry, we are customer facing. So there's policy, what we are saying is happening, and there's what we call reality. So I can say the ZiG as a currency has managed to withstand the pressure maybe that was being exerted by the US dollar. Unfortunately, we have got a lot of trust issues that are still prevailing in the market. For instance, if you are to look at the cost that we call like employment cost as an example, most of the national employment councils, they are publishing their salaries predominantly in USD. Where we used to say maybe it's 40% USD, 60% ZiG, it has been inverted. It's now 60% USD and 40% ZiG. So the trust issues, they still need to be managed. And my recommendation would be, if you look at the biggest customer in the market is the government. Whatever they do, it sets the tone in the market. Companies, yes, they'll try to say, let's turn left, let's turn right. But whatever the government does, it actually sets the tone. For instance, if you are to say, okay, fine, the biggest employer is going to pay his employees at 60% in ZiG and 40% in USD, you realize that it is actually going to strengthen the ZiG. So in short, I can safely say the ZiG is very stable and people are coming to buy using the ZiG. Unfortunately, there is still a lot of trust issues. Right now, if you give someone 20 ZiG as change, they'll rather say, what if you give me something equivalent to that? They don't have that confidence to say, tomorrow I can still come and use the same note. But predominantly, if you look at it, most of our transactions, they're still in USD. Though we are very, very happy with the coming in of the bigger notes. They're durable, they've ticked the box of change, and customers, we used to fight with customers after you've given someone sweets, bubble gums, and that stuff. But now I'm happy that people, they've got an alternative to say, okay, I don't want that the sweets, I can get the ZiG. So in short, reality is that people, we need to work on this issue called trust. To say, guys, this currency is here to stay. It's not a temporary thing.
Right. You represent SMEs in this country. What is your experience with the domestic currency, the ZiG, policy versus reality?
Okay, I think we should congratulate, the government and the RBZ for having held inflation to where it is, because I think currently the performance of the ZiG is showing that there is balance. And we would really want to get to the point whereby we are really operating with the monocurrency. But I think at this stage, it will be too soon to be really speaking about monocurrency. I think it's trading well, although we find that the availability is not as expected, which is something that is, I can say it's actually good. It's what has really put it to where it is now, because where there's scarcity, you find that, you know, the balance then goes the other way. But however, it should then be transcended to using plastic money, you know, to say, even if we say we want to, we shouldn't be continuously promoting the cash transactions, because I think that's where we find the fueling going more to the black market, and then it also distorts the pricing and all other things. But if we could maintain the balance between using plastic money and also maintaining the, you know, the prices, and then we can strike balance. And then also the policies should also be consistent. So where we are saying there are changes in the way taxes are being paid, it shouldn't be a choice to say, okay, maybe we can pay so much in USD. We should be intentional to say, if we're moving in the currency, in the ZiG currency, then it should be also speaking to what the local authorities, what ZIMRA is also saying. There shouldn't be these discrepancies, because that's when you find the selection where we would say, okay, we as a business, we will just go the USD way. It should be a formality where it just, you know, sequentially flows into the system to say, okay, fine, if we're paying duty in this, then ZIMRA and local authorities and all the licensing holds this part in ZiG. And the transactions also being monitored to say the cashless society should also, you know, be encouraged, because the minute we start saying we're looking forward to the 200 denomination, we're looking forward to the 100 denomination, when we have realized that the introduction of the 50 also flipped the, you know, the increase a bit, to say where the rate was 26, it then went to 30, 32. So we should also be very careful in those two dynamics to say, is the introduction of the higher notes going to bring a different a different result to business, or how is it? But for the SMEs, I think it's been good. The stability has helped to really map a way forward, although I should clearly state that the past 6 months for business has been really stagnant, where, you know, businesses have been trying to really find their path.
Right. I will come back to you on that particular subject. As follow-up, perhaps, you said we have seen what appears to be positive indicators. Before we take a break, may you speak to what more the central bank needs to do to restore currency, to restore confidence in the domestic currency. It has taken us 2 years to get to 1.5 months worth of import cover. That means another 2 years from 2026 to 2028 would give us 3 months worth of import cover. And yet the governor has said we need 3 to 6 months worth of import cover before we can see the introduction of a monocurrency. What should the central bank governor do?
I think that and for once, I would like to kind of shift the responsibility to our banking sector. I unfortunately do not think they've really played along, because she is talking of, can I say, liquidity crunch. There's no access to the currency. For now, I think the central bank have done what they have done, and all they can do is to morally persuade the banks to play. I will give you an example. This market is on a daily basis in excess of ZiG, and the banks are settling that excess with the central bank at 0%. They would rather put that ZiG at the central bank than lend to the market. Access to finance, I'll give you another example. I was renewing my bank card yesterday with one of the banks, the Zig card. And when I went to my branch, they told me, we don't have Zig card banks. Go to that other branch, which was like another drive. Imagine the inconvenience. So it's not a priority, I think, in the banking sector to promote the usage of Zig. So I ended up not doing it. I still don't have my Zig bank card, but I have my US dollar bank card. So I think, unfortunately, our banking industry needs to really be talked to. They need to be set down and we discuss. I know that the cost of, which is a problem for business, cost of borrowing is very high. And the reason, I'm talking from an independent analyst. If you see that the policy rate was reduced to 30%, it doesn't mean the banks must lend at 30% and above. This is a policy, it's just a guide.
And yet it's one of the highest.
Yes, what the banks should be doing is to mobilize deposits from the market at a lower cost than 30, and then lending that money to the market at a lower cost than 30. The central bank is just indicating where we are going at the policy rate. But what I see our banks do, they take that rate as if the money they are lending is always coming from the central bank. Yet they have the Zig, which they are settling at 0% to the central bank. So there's a disconnect. I do not know how and when banks are going to start helping the central bank to drive confidence in this currency. Start lending in Zig at acceptable, affordable cost of funds. That's what I would say.
What would be the acceptable cost of funds?
Let me show you what the central bank did. Because of this problem that there's no liquidity in the market, the central bank came in the market directly, which is unusual, with two instruments, a 30-day instrument and a 90-day instrument. And it was oversubscribed 3 times by the market. Meaning the Zig is there in the market, but they don't want to put it in the banks because it's 0% interest. The central bank is paying 8%, and the market oversubscribed. The 90 days, 11%, the market oversubscribed. All banks have to do is to pay interest to people's deposits, and the deposits will come into the banks. Then they lend those deposits at lower than the policy rate. But look, this is my view. And I think the central bank has done what it can do for now. I really don't have much, but I think we have to have a conversation with the banks to say, when are you going to come to the party? Thanks, Eben.
Right, time for us to take a breather. When we come back, we continue our conversation on the subject, is Zimbabwe ready to adopt the Zig as the mono currency? The Checks will be right back. Don't go anywhere.
Same great news, just a new time. ZTN Prime is taking your evening news experience to a new level. We are bringing you the same high-impact journalism you trust, just a little earlier. Starting now, our flagship news bulletin moves from 8 p.m. to 7 p.m. every Monday to Friday. Stay ahead of the curve before your night begins. ZTN Prime, your news, your time, now at 7 p.m. Don't miss a beat.
Are you planning an event and you're looking for equipment? Or you are looking for a professional space to create your moment? At ZTN Prime, we don't just supply equipment, we amplify your brand. We have fully kitted studios available for hire, ready to bring your professional content to life. Plus, unlike ordinary providers, we integrate your event with the power of the Zim Papers ecosystem, reaching over 12 million people. From premium production and high-quality gear to nationwide coverage and seamless live streaming, we handle it all. Experience the ZTN advantage. We create, capture, broadcast, and amplify your vision. Get in touch with our ZTN commercial production unit today. Contact Ivy or Tinashe and turn your event into a powerful brand experience.
Same great news, just a new time. ZTN Prime is taking your evening news experience to a new level. We are bringing you the same high-impact journalism you trust, just a little earlier. Starting now, our flagship news bulletin moves from 8 p.m. to 7 p.m. every Monday to Friday. Stay ahead of the curve before your night begins. ZTN Prime, your news, your time, now at 7 p.m. Don't miss a beat.
Are you planning an event and you're looking for equipment? Or you are looking for a professional space to create your moment? At ZTN Prime, we don't just supply equipment, we amplify your brand. We have fully kitted studios available for hire, ready to bring your professional content to life. Plus, unlike ordinary providers, we integrate your event with the power of the Zim Papers ecosystem, reaching over 12 million people. From premium production and high-quality gear to nationwide coverage and seamless live streaming, we handle it all. Experience the ZTN advantage. We create, capture, broadcast, and amplify your vision. Get in touch with our ZTN commercial production unit today. Contact Ivy or Tinashe and turn your event into a powerful brand experience.
They call me Racer X, or in this case, Racer J.
Put your seatbelt on.
You're watching The Chase as we come to you from Zimbabwe's capital, Harare. Now, picking up from where we left off, we are taking a look at the monetary policy stance by the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe, where the introduction of a monocurrency is concerned. Over 60% of the conditions necessary have already been fulfilled, with just a couple outstanding and inhibiting us from having a full-blown launch of the monocurrency. And we take a look at whether Zimbabwe is ready for that yet. Now, Gladys, picking up from where we left off, there was a conversation around the subject of a confidence deficit that is existing in the market. Policy versus reality. What is your take?
Thank you very much, Iban. Looking at the issue of confidence, people are really looking at the government as the anchor or the leader in the monocurrency journey. So looking at issues like payment of taxes, even renewing of our passports, I believe confidence is going to be instilled when the government starts accepting ZIG payments for the government issues like taxes, like your passport, even the local authority issues. We should be able to pay our bills and our rates in the ZIG. So that is going to instill much of the confidence from the transacting public. As well, I wanted to comment on the issue of inflation, which we would like to congratulate the Reserve Bank for achieving the single-digit inflation of around 4.7% by the end of June. But the issue is, are we going to see a sustained single-digit inflation in the next 1 to 1.5 years? For people to say we are really confident with regards to inflation issues. And then again, commenting on confidence, when we introduce the $100 or the $200 ZiG note, what are we saying in terms of confidence? It might point to the fact that there is now inflation starting to come back once again when you are now introducing higher denominated notes. So that's also an issue that the RBZ needs to take note of.
Right, I've got to pick your mind on this, Agnes. Millions of dollars exchange hands on a daily basis in places like Mbare, among several other places where you've got SMEs playing out and informal traders operating within this very economy. And the bulk of the transactions there are taking place in United States dollars. What do you believe would be necessary for there to be a stakeholder buy-in from the perspective of the SMEs in this country?
Thank you, Eben. You know, I think the situation has been going on for years, and it has to be an inclusive, I don't know how I can put it, to address the issue, it needs inclusive stakeholders to really take their part, because what happens here is you would find, let me give an example of farmers. So farmers are buying their inputs in the US dollar. The imports that are coming, they are also coming in those denominations. And then you would find now that trading back, as my sister was saying, the licensing and everything else that is happening at Mbaremsika, the fees that they are collecting, they are also in US dollars. The transport costs to even to take all the produce to the market, everything is in US dollars. And, you know, it's always this thought to say the money stays somewhere. So the money is not really going to be in her pocket, because the minute she has the money from her potatoes, she's now paying the transport costs, she's paying all these. So the money continues to be circulating in that. So the minute one says, I'm taking the ZiG or I'm going to accept US dollar, it then disrupts the whole flow of the whole chain. So I think even if we want to be intentional about introducing the ZiG, we need to really start understanding how is this going to be, how is the repercussion of the effects. So in the informal sector and in the SME sector, it is really a matter of the flow, the chain. If I'm getting my raw materials in US dollars, and then I'm going to be producing and I'm paying electricity and all other costs in US dollars, and my salary is in US dollars, so there is actually going to be a difficult position if I'm to pay the salaries in ZiG, or then expect the person to accept the ZiG and then go and buy also the stuff, you know. So it has to be a sequence of things, of the chain has to make sense to say, where are we coming in? If the banks are coming in, what is the support that they're also going to give in to this whole chain? So that we really realize that, you know,
end to end.
Yeah, end to end. Right. Even the logistics, I'm happy that, you know, the new policies that are coming in, it has to be an inclusive chain-to-chain interaction whereby we can hold the system together and say the flow can result in that mono frequency.
Right. Let's look at some numbers. Recent financial reports from listed consumer companies such as Delta Corporation and Dairy Board indicate that between 94 and 96% of the domestic sales are still conducted in US dollars. Moses, in this environment, how can formal retailers successfully adapt to policies encouraging greater ZiG usage while many suppliers continue to transact predominantly in foreign currency?
All right, thank you, Eben. I would like to respond to that question in a clever way. Let's first of all look at the definition of an SME in this country. Last week there was an SME symposium here in Harare, And it's not in dispute that the bulk of our companies are in that bracket.
Yes.
And if you look at it again, most of these people or most of these companies are not banking. The reason being the conditions that are presenting in the banking sector, they don't encourage someone to bank the money. For instance, I'm in the business of buying and selling potatoes as an example. If I put money into the bank, right, I'm going to be allowed to withdraw $10,000 if I'm a company, right? If I'm an individual, I'm going to be given $1,000. So what is it that you are going to say as a country that will convince that Mbari trader who is used to be having his money so that as and when I get a truckload, I'll be told, guys, there's a truckload coming from Togo with full of potatoes, come. And I'm saying, by the way, my money is in the bank. And the ATM is not allowing me to withdraw that kind of money. So what am I trying to say here? Yes, Dairy Board, yes, your Delta, they could say 94% of their money, their sales are in USD. The reason being, we are getting a signal. The bulk of our customers are in the informal sector. How best can we attract them to come into the formal sector? Right now, if you are to go to Zimmer to say, I want to apply for VAT, I think I meet the threshold. I want to apply for VAT. It's not easy. What I would suggest we should do, let's relax some of the laws. For instance, and my sisters should be able to walk into Kurima building there. I'm Chiwuri Moses. This is my ID. I need to register for VAT. What do they lose if they give me a VAT number? I'm the one who is walking into their offices. But what do they tell you? We need your list. We need your schedule. But it is me who is telling you that I qualify. It is actually the best interest of the government to relax the laws on registration of VAT. So right now you realize that the moment you see a Zimra official by your doorstep, the first question is, what have I done? Currently, Zimra is not a partner to business people. So coming to your question to say, how best can the formal retail sector maybe work with the authorities? We are working with them. But the reality is the real sales, the real money is in the informal setup. If you go to some of the banks, they define as an SME as any business which is turning over 3.5 million in a year. 3.5 million. And we are being told 60% of the Zimbabwean businesses, they are in the SME. But our laws that are coming up with, they are for the few formal businesses. So my thinking would be, let's come up with laws that can encourage everyone. How do we encourage? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, for the next 6 months or for the next 2 years, there is like what the cops does. Guys, anyone who holds a gun, please surrender it. We are not going to ask you any question, just surrender it, right? But what do we do with Zimra? Sure, there's a moratorium, but we need to ask you, were you paying your taxes? What we are setting aside is the interest. But whatever you didn't pay, you are going to pay. So the formal few, I don't think they constitute much in the sales that we are talking about from Delta, from Dairy Board. Most of the people, what are they doing? They go to Delta, they go to Dairy Board, they go to whoever with their money, $100,000, $200,000, right? They buy almost all the production, the whole production line of Mazoe, the Fuko Maheu. The production line is bought on cash. So the question now is, if Ben is coming to say, I'm XYZ wholesalers, right? I need my hair, but I'll pay it in 14 days. And my sister is coming, I've got the cash. Who do you think Dairy Board will promote? That IMTT people who are in the formal sector are paying, these people are not paying because they're not swiping. It's a cash deal which is transacted. And you know, whenever we are exchanging cash, there are a lot of things that happens when cash is changing hands. So to answer you, we need to widen the tax bracket, the tax base, to say, okay, let's have everyone into the tax basket, such that when you're coming up with the laws, we are not coming up with laws for a few. If you look at it right now, how many big retailers are left in this country? There are a few. Most of them, they are small tax shops. They are small businesses. So that if Zimra is to conduct a sting, the following day you find the business closed. But you can't do that if you're a big retailer. So the long and short of it, I'm just saying, let's create laws that encourages people to voluntarily come and register to be taxpayers. And by voluntarily registering as taxpayers, eventually the ZIG will find warm.
Right. Let me jump in there. Gladys, there still is a tendency on the market that when one receives the domestic currency, they quickly want to convert it to harder currency. The question is, how can that cycle be broken?
Thank you very much, Iban. We are talking about the issue of the store of value. We still come back to the issue of confidence. It speaks to the issues of store of value. Are people seeing the store of value in the ZIG? Can I still hold on to my ZIG and still buy something of value, like in the US, like when I'm using the US dollar? For example, maybe I'm a pensioner. Can I choose my pension to be paid in ZIG? So it's the issues to do with the store of value. So if we deal with the issues of the store of value in the ZIG, we are going to see people having more confidence and trust in the ZIG. Also, commenting on the issue of the financial sector, am I able to earn more interest if I save my ZIG in the bank? So it's also to really encourage our banks and our microfinance institutions to actually support the initiative of the ZIG by maybe increasing the rate of interests on savings. Then it is going to encourage the public to bank, even the SMEs which rely on cash, if they are able to deposit much of their sales in the ZIG, and then they move to the digital platforms, since most of them are on the EcoCash, are on Inbox, are on One Money, then we are going to see a lot of transaction in the ZIG, even on the digital platforms. So it is the issue to do with the store of value that is making people lose confidence in the ZIG.
Agnes, what do you believe SMEs would like to see happen before they can be ready to adopt the ZIG as their currency?
Okay, I think my sister mentioned that, government has to show seriousness in them first adopting and saying we are comfortable as government to use the currency, to say whatever transactions. And, once there's this dualism in whatever is happening from the top, it will also be flickering down to the bottom to say, then we have these choices to say we can either put a certain percentage here or maybe we collect the US dollar on this end. But what we would like to see happen is to see banks really coming to the party, because I think, they are the center of the conversation, because they are the channel that will hold the currency to really flow where it's supposed to. But as our other gentleman explained, that the banks are actually benefiting directly as banks, to say whatever they're getting from the Reserve Bank, then they channel it back into, where they're cutting the costs but getting more for themselves rather than investing back into the individuals whom they would want to support. So we as SMEs would want to see the banks really coming up with money that suits business, money that is affordable, money that can really bring the change, not money that then burdens you even worse, because some of the rates that are put, the interest rates then hinder the borrowing factor. So we would want to see money that is affordable, and money that is conducive for businesses, because it's also not one business fits all, because you find situations where you are applying for a loan, but then you have to be a group of 5, and then you have to guarantee each other for your business to then. So those things also have to fall out if we really want to see the inclusion, the financial inclusion, which will also address the issue of us saying, is this currency going to be acceptable at what stage? So we would want to see it coming into the system, trickling from the banks also coming up with products that are ZIG orientated, that will give the confidence to say, if I got a loan of 50,000 or whatever ZIG, then I'm also supposed to be paying it in ZIG. So how do I pay it back in ZIG? If I also generate the ZIG, it means it has to be flowing back. So I think those systems have to be put in place, and we should be intentional to say banks should come into the party, and let's see how they can also sustain the SMEs, not only looking at microfinances, but really having the banking institutions saying we are fully coming in to also support not just the corporates, but also the SMEs.
Gladys, there's been, of course, concerns from the business fraternity for the lowering of the interest rates vis-a-vis the degree of inflation that has come to single-digit territory for the first time in over 27 years. Where do you stand?
The cost of doing business is still very high in Zimbabwe. And if we are to really open up our productive sector and support borrowing, we are going to see an improvement in terms of our production. And we are going to see increase in the productive capacity, where I believe now the interest rates have to be lowered by the banks. Since the Reserve Bank has come to the party by lowering the policy rate to 30%. So I also believe that...
But that remains still in the top 3 of the highest in Africa, if not the highest.
It's still the highest, but the Reserve Bank has done something good by lowering the policy rate. So in turn, the financial institutions also need to lower their interest rates when it comes to their lending rates, so that it promotes the productive sectors of the economy.
Right, your final thoughts?
My submission, the last submission, would be let's create a policy that will encourage people to bank money. Right now, people are using all sorts of storage facilities, your vaults, or whatever. Let's create an opportunity for people to bank their money. One of them is the interest rate. Right now, we are saying if you bank your money 3% per annum, let's increase that so that I can deliberately say, okay, I'm going to put my money in the bank, and that money can be lent to SMEs. If we grow our SMEs from 60% to 80%, 90%, the country will be smiling. That would be my recommendation. And lastly, let's try to find a way of capacitating the big retailers. They are the anchor tenants. Look at your Glen, what you call it, Chitungwi's town center. It's now going down. If you look at High Glen, there are no anchor tenants. We need to have anchor tenants at all these shopping malls so that all these smaller businesses can feed from the anchor tenants. Thank you.
In 30 seconds, what kind of support do you believe retailers need? I think we've seen...
We need cheap funding. Right now we talk of TFF, right? We see some sectors, your mining, your what, those guys, they get cheap funding. We also need cheap funding. Imagine if one retailer can open 10 stores. What is the downstream effect of opening 10 stores? One store employs more than 150 employees. Imagine times 10, that is 1,500 people who are going to be directly employed by that. So we need cheap funding, and that will actually cause a lot of downstream effect. Positively.
We have come to the end of our program. I'd like to thank our guests on the chase tonight: Gladys Mutsopotsi Shumbambiri, business and economic analyst; Moses Chuhuri, an industrial economist; Mishek Ugaro was with us earlier, president Zimbabwe Economic Society and senior ZNCC economist; as well as Agnes Magunje, chairperson, Informal Traders Empowerment Association. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for appearing on the chase.
Thank you, Ivan.
And of course, that's a wrap. Do follow us on our social media handles, the Zimpepers TV network, as well as at ZTN Prime. I'm Eben Mabunda, the money man. Let them do what they do. When we do what we do, we mean business. Thank you for watching, and have a good evening.